I'm Rebecca Ahn with Money and Tech here at the Bitcoin Job Fair at Plug and Play in Sunnyvale, and I'm joined by Juan Llanos, a Bitcoin entrepreneur and AML and compliance expert. So Juan, tell me what you're doing here at the Bitcoin Job Fair.
Well, first of all, since a few months ago, I've been very privileged to get to know very important people in the tech industry, in the Bitcoin world, and I'm excited to be part of this world. A lot of innovation is happening here, and I'm involved advising some of these companies, and also, working with the industry to make sure that regulation everywhere in the world makes sense for these new technologies that are totally new and are challenging every belief system that we have. So I am part of the industry now. I consider myself part of the industry. And I'm meeting people, trying to recruit also, and probably partner with other people. So that's what I'm here for.
How did you get into the industry?
Well, initially, that's a good question. I was mostly working on in traditional payments, a remittance company. My last company was Unidos Financial, a retail financial services company. You know, we focused on the Hispanic underserved market in the United States, doing remittances, bill payment, check cashing, all of these services that the underbanked consumers in the U.S. need, and we would send funds as a remittance company to Mexico. 90% of the volume was to Mexico. And also I have this career as an anti-money laundering expert, and I was researching for a presentation on cybercrime and emerging technologies, and I stumbled upon Bitcoin, and I did research about it, and I never prejudge anything, and so I approached it as a research interest, and I found that it was fascinating from the technology standpoint, the value it could bring, how different it was from what we knew. But then I also saw the risks, right? The risk of regulation. It was value transfer. I realized it was value transfer, right? So value transfer is regulated already, everywhere in the world. But the industry, I saw that the industry didn't know that. So I approached the Bitcoin community. I did a meetup presentation in the Bitcoin New York City meetup early March, and I told them, guys, this is value transfer. This is bound to be regulated if it's not already. So 2 weeks later comes out the FinCEN guidance on March 18. And so I became sort of an oracle for the industry. Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, some said. So I started writing a blog called Contrarian Compliance, because I have this contrarian approach to regulation and to complying with the law. I'm a big believer in data and data analysis, and really looking at people not from the point of view of who they say they are, but when they identify themselves with an ID, but what they do, right? You have to judge actions, not ethnic origin, right? So I've been trying to, engage in conversations about that. So, and then I became very active in the community, and that's how I got involved with the industry.
And what do you think the current situation is with AML and compliance and regulation? These are all very hot topics right now. What do you think? What's the current situation, and where do you think it's headed?
Well, the situation is that there is already a framework or a regime in place that the government, the US government, and I would say the international community has decided applies to value transfer. Again, what I was saying before, the transferring value from A to B or from A to A at a different time and place as a business in the United States is a regulated business. It's considered money transmission. And the government has said that has interpreted all rules to apply to this new technology, right? So it's inevitable. We have to, companies will have to come to terms with that definition, and they're really realizing that there's no other way to grow a business or to nurture a venture unless you comply with the regime in place. So I think that this is the kind of awareness I've been trying to raise with my blog. Don't shoot ourselves in the foot by doing something reckless in such a way that it will create a bad reaction from the government. So implement your controls, talk to the regulators, explain, teach, educate about the technology, how it works, the potential value it will have, disruption, financial inclusion, efficiencies. So the situation is difficult because there's a very strict regulatory framework in the United States and globally, and also because the technology itself, the nature of Bitcoin, is subject to abuse in the sense, not by money launderers or criminals, but in the sense of hackers, loss and theft. And this is what's happening everywhere, right, today, right? So there's consumer risks that will have to be tackled and addressed.
And that's why these regulations are in place in the traditional market.
Right? They should. I mean, the whole purpose of regulation is regulation. If you think about it, this is a good point. We have to focus on the spirit and the intent of regulation. Regulation has been enacted by society through representative institutions, the branches of government, right? To protect society, to protect citizens, right? So, and that's the reason why there's regulation exists. The question is whether regulation it makes sense for the specific technology, for the specific payment systems, for the innovations that are coming, and that is what we think we need to challenge as an industry, and we are doing.
Absolutely. And do you think that conversation is happening very differently around the world than it is in the U.S.? Or where do you think it's most hopeful?
Well, I don't think that there's different, I think the world is in tune with respect to the fight against financial crime, money laundering, terrorist financing, as in many things, in terms of, introducing changes or innovations. And many countries of the world are waiting to see what happens in the US with respect to the regulation of this new technology. So one thing that's very unique to the United States of America that doesn't exist in the rest of the world is the licensing, the legal authority to operate an exchange or to operate a money transmission service in the world. In the United States of America, there's a state-by-state regime which makes it very onerous for companies to start offering services, these kinds of services. In the rest of the world, it's very easy. You just register with the government, implement your controls, and you launch a product, and then you expect and you lure consumers to your product. And so there's a different regime by design between the United States and the rest of the world, but in general there's consumer protection concerns, loss concerns. You saw all of these announcements everywhere in the world, countries announcing consumer advisories, now states in the United States. Now there's going to be a domino effect. So
So it needs to happen in the U.S. first before...
Yeah, many countries, and I've been traveling a lot, and many countries, South America, the Middle East, and Dubai, Abu Dhabi, they're waiting to see what happens in America, to see, because, the financial system is all communicating vessels, and a country needs payments, needs financing, and which is, the lifeblood of any economy. So, and everything happens in the first world, insurance, payments, everything happens in New York and London. So what happens in those big centers, financial centers, tends to trickle down or cascade down to the rest of the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now you're also a member of the Bitcoin Foundation. And they recently just expanded into Mexico with a partnership down there. What do you see as do you see that being a huge area of opportunity in Mexico, and what do you think the situation is there?
Well, I've been in the money remittance world for 12 years. I understand the value of remittances for development, and I actually left my company. We were an MSV, a remittance company, to get into this world because I saw the future. When we have a P2P service, where an individual can send value to another individual directly, what is the purpose for us intermediaries? We're going to be taken out of the picture. So I saw the writing on the wall, if you will, and I said, this is a great opportunity. So the problem is that we have obstacles, regulation, banks are very wary, regulators are not amenable to things like, changes in business plans and innovations, and then we have the problem of liquidity on the receiving end. So because consumers need their local currency to live their lives. Until Bitcoin becomes a global currency and is pervasive in every single merchant in the world, people will pay with a local currency. So there was no liquidity on the receiving end. So Mexico is I know companies that are innovating, creating liquidity exchanges there, and so and the focus of Bitcoin Foundation on that is a sign that the large destination countries for remittances need to create that liquidity. So that's, I guess, one of the reasons why the Bitcoin Foundation is pointing in that direction.
Now, you're from Argentina,
yes.
So that's another country in South and Central America. Is that another area where you think there's a lot of growth happening now, or does there need to be a lot more focus of Bitcoin there?
Well, for Argentina is not a destination country for remittances, but we have other sets of problems, right? And we are the archetypical hyperinflation, economic mismanagement poster child of the world, and one of the many, right? We are in my lifetime, and I explained that in a TEDx talk recently, the value of our currency depreciates wildly. So, every fractional reserve system is inflationary, but ours is extremely inflationary, and the currency loses value, and every 10, 15, 20 years, we have to reset and start again. So that our life savings evaporate because of hyperinflation, because of mismanagement. Governments in countries that have no controls print money to finance their spending. That's a reality. We're condemned to these cycles of loss of value every 15 years, but now suddenly there's an alternative store of value. Granted, it's volatile, but it's volatile upwards. So we would rather, we live our lives in Argentina, in South America in general, in dollars. So we store our value in dollars because we know that, or euro if we can, because we know that those currencies don't lose value, because we understand that everything is exchanged and bought and purchased in dollars in Argentina. So we use currency to pay taxes and to live our lives, but the store of value and the savings are all in dollars. And we keep them in the mattress because that's the way you keep them. You cannot have bank accounts in dollars. And now the governments are trying to prevent capital flight. So if we get out of our currency, that affects the economy, right? So this Bitcoin has created this new light at the end of the tunnel, in Argentina for people who really understand, either very young people who are very entrepreneurs, understand technology, are excited about the project, or older people who have seen their savings decimated. And like me, I went to through two big events. One is hyperinflation in '89. And then the corralito, or the account seizures at the end of 2001, which ended in disastrous political crisis and the biggest debt default in history, sovereign debt default in history. So this is this is incredible for Argentina. People are getting to understand that we have an alternative. We have an apolitical, censorship-resistant system that allows us to move our funds, our hard-earned funds, into an alternative. And that is one of the big values that this Bitcoin has globally, outside of the United States, something that is probably not applicable here, but is very valuable for the rest of the world.
You spoke about all of this in your TEDx talk.
I just repeated my talk. I'm sorry. You don't have to watch it now.
How was it giving that talk? Were you nervous?
Oh my God, it was horrible. It was, first of all, I was relatively new to Bitcoin, right? Second was the time constraint. When you see that countdown going down, and it's incredible. It's very nerve-wracking. And I had to craft my topic, and I received a lot of help from people in the industry. I'm very thankful to them because they told me how to craft the story, right? And I used half of the time to explain some use cases or potential impact of the technology, and then trying to explain why Bitcoin was revolutionary, why it was, and some of the challenges. I also used a couple of minutes for the challenges. So it was very exciting. It was an excellent experience. I have been a speaker for a long time, but that was the most nerve-wracking experience ever in my life. And hopefully I'm now, the next time will be much better for me.
Yeah, now you're here at the Bitcoin Job Fair.
Exactly. This is also a very exciting place and time to be in.
Excellent. Well, thank you for talking with us, Juan.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.